I will give you my heart and affection. I give you my love and devotion. I'll never cease to worship you, my God. So I've come to give my offering. Many blessings fall on me. Every step of the way, I have felt your presence, oh, you have been closer than a friend, oh, boy. And this your love will never end. So I've come to say,
Welcome to the Hour of Restoration, coming your way live each and every Sabbath with a new topic. Last week we touched the topic of polygamy according to the Old Testament. Today we're going to touch again the topic polygamy according to the New Testament. We're going to try and figure out whether this is something which is still applicable in modern times in the 21st century. So tell a friend to tune in. We'll be right back in a short 2 to 3 minutes.
To you, how can I say that I'm grateful? Oh yeah, I have a Father who will never ever fail me, no. He never sleep or slumber, he'll never fall my hand, yeah. You have been closer than a friend, oh, and this your love will never end. So I've come to say, I will give you my heart and affection. I give you my love and devotion. I'll never cease to worship you, my God. So I've come to give my offering. Many blessings fall on me. Every step of the way, I have felt your presence, oh, you have been closer than a friend, oh, boy. And this your love will never end. So I've come to say,
Welcome once again to the Hour of Restoration, coming your way live each and every Sabbath with a new topic. As I said in the intro, last week we were dealing with the topic called polygamy according to what we know as the Old Testament, and today we're going to look at the topic of polygamy based on what we know as the New Testament. But before we jump into that, we'll have a short conversation about what we know about the topic, how we view the topic, and how we are trying to fit this biblical topic in modern times. Without further ado, I have two of the people, my brother and my sister of the group, seated at the table today. My brother APC and my sister Brittany. APC, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
You seem a bit tired today. Yeah. Are you healthy? Are you a bit sick or? Oh, okay, great, great, great. We thank you for you being here. Sister Brit, how are you doing today? Yeah. Cool, cool, cool. So last week we were dealing with the topic of polygamy, and it is something which I have never heard before. When I look at the teachings I've had in different churches I've been to and different assemblies I've visited, has any of you ever maybe heard a teaching about polygamy in the Christian church or in places where they use the Bible to teach? Never heard of it.
Remember, I think the only verse that comes up, but that's like against polygamy, is the verse about the
Wait one sec.
yes.
Yep. Go ahead.
Is the verse about, I think, bishops or deacons just having one wife? I think that's the only thing I can mention where it's specifically said, but
Where-
nothing concerning polygamy.
And Brother APC, have you ever heard a teaching about polygamy somewhere in the church or maybe at a Bible study?
No,
Not at all.
no, not at all.
No, okay, so we were looking at the topic of polygamy, and why do you think that this is something which, when you look at all the places that many people go to study the Bible or where they go to church, why do you think that this is something which is never spoken about, even though it is something that we can see happening a lot in the church? I'm not saying that it is right or wrong, I'm just saying that it is there in the scriptures, but there seems to be no place where this is actually discussed. Why do you think that is, APC?
Because Christians got a different doctrine. Christians don't do polygamy. They give one wife and one husband. That is how the Christian doctrine is. That's how it is in the Christianity.
Yeah.
But outside they might think differently. Yeah.
And what do you think, Brittany? Why do you think that even though this is something which we can see, and we can really see with scriptures and stuff, we can see it in the scriptures, why do you think that this is not something which is really spoken about in different churches and assemblies?
Well, I agree with what the brother said. That's the way that Christians have been taught. That's the doctrine that has been spread in churches. Where it comes from, well, we do know where Christianity comes from and how it was spread in Africa. So I assume that there is an idea or an agenda behind it, because when they came in contact with our cultures, they probably also saw that, well, they practice having multiple wives. So I think there's an agenda behind it. But concerning, where does it come from? The exact root, I don't know. But
do you think that this is something which is right? Because like many people that go to church, as you said, they many people in the church where I grew up, right? It is not something which is practiced. It's not something which is taught. Many people have never heard of it, and the norm in Christian religion is that a man has one wife and can never have multiple wives. And I think that they also use that verse that you just mentioned, I think in First Timothy, about a bishop having one wife. So do you think that this teaching is something which is right? Is it normal to practice this doctrine and still worship Yah, for example? Because that's how a lot of people look at it, right? So what do you think of that?
Well, normal has to do with in which context it is applied. So, for example, here in Western culture, it is almost everyone has one woman. One wife.
Excluding
One wife.
the side piece.
Yeah, exactly. But for example, in African countries, in Arabic countries, they have multiple wives, and that is their norm. So that is normal for them. I don't believe this teaching is wrong. Why? Because in the scripture, it obviously happens. Many of the patriarchs had many women, was not one wife. So no, I don't think it's wrong. I think where we go wrong is being very limited in our way of thinking because we live here and we were born here. So automatically it's like, oh, this is how my culture is, this is what Christianity says, so everything outside that is wrong. But look at the scriptures, look at our own cultures, you see it's not wrong. So normal is defined by its context itself, but the teaching, it's, for me, that's true, that's right, it happens.
And how do you view that, APC? The fact that for many people this is a strange teaching, and based on where the majority of believers come from, I can understand why they categorize this teaching as strange. But how do you view it? Is this something strange? How should you view polygamy as a believer? How should you look at this topic? Because for a lot of people, when they hear this is just something which, it's not something which they generally discuss. So how should you look at this topic as a believer?
The same people that find it strange are the same people that pray in the name of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What did they do? The same that they say, you are the God of David. What did David do? Yeah. Well, I can say it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense. These churches, man, they mess people up. Because how can you read that book and be against polygamy? It's if you go on a school and they give you an exam and they ask you and you say this book, polygamy is wrong, you will fail. Because this whole book, the Bible, is about polygamy. Christ will come to pick his wives, many wives, how the church has been taught us. But the same people, they say, no, it is wrong. Polygamy is wrong. So the Christian doctrine and the church, it doesn't make sense on so many levels. It is sometimes like, how can you be educated? You have a university, you have all types of degrees in your pocket, but you still can come with the conclusion polygamy is wrong.
And like, when you say that, how can you look at this book and reject, or let's say that polygamy is false? Did you immediately think that this was right, or did you immediately think that when you were introduced to this topic, did you immediately think that polygamy was right, or that this was just a right teaching?
No. You know why? Because the ones that taught me, the ones that taught them, did the same thing. They came with a concept, believe this. They tell you I start to read the Bible from that blue Bible, the small blue Bible. It starts with Matthew. It starts with Matthew. It makes no sense. The way they taught us was already wrong. So we grew up with that mindset, and the one that taught us, they also have been taught the same way. Like, take this and leave that.
But when you were introduced to the topic, right? What was like your thought process? Did you think that, okay, can this be true? Did you first had like a battle with the topic, or were you immediately able to see that this is biblical and scriptural, and were you able to accept it?
I had a big smile. I was like, yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I had a big smile. I remember way back before I even found this way. I've heard about it because I had many conversations with Muslims. I was like, yes, you can get 2 or 3. But the thing is, when the brothers start to teach me correctly how it works, it make a lot of sense in me. But it also gave me a sort of way to view at Christians, like, why do you make it so difficult for people? Why do you have to cover things? It is a topic that for me, I find it sad. It's sad how easy we are brainwashed, and when you have the book in front of you, but still,
And what about you, Brittany? Like I can, it, let's say if I were a woman, I'm not a woman. If I were a woman, I could understand uh, the backlash that this teaching gets. Even if you look at if you try to browse the internet, not biased in a sense, but simply trying to understand the topic of polygamy. If you simply browse the internet and you are looking at different teachings and stuff like that, you can really see the backlash that comes from different women, and usually, yeah, it's not really well. But like, how when you came into contact with this topic, like, what was your thought process like? Were you able to accept it? Were you able to give it a place? How do you look at this topic from a standpoint of from a perspective of a woman?
Honest answer.
Yeah, of course. No,
I thought, what is this?
Yeah.
For me, it was like
Abomination.
well, not abomination. That's a big word, but it was just like, yeah, okay. Good luck with that. I can understand why the brother is happy.
Yeah.
I can understand why many men are happy. But hearing that as a as a woman or as a wife or something, that it does not immediately click. I want to say it's natural for women to just be a little bit like, I don't want to share that's my husband or man or
Yours. Yours.
yours. Yeah.
Yours.
It isn't a little bit natural for a woman to have that, right? So no, when I first heard this, I was like, I don't know who came up with this story, but it's not true. And I had arguments. I was like, well, if it was supposed to be multiple wives, why didn't Adam have multiple wives? Why did Adam just have Eve? And then I came up with other examples. Yeah, Jacob had multiple wives, but they had like beef between them. Hannah, Elkanah, and Penina, same thing. And there's always an issue. I've never seen it been peaceful. Abraham, Sarah, Hagar, it has never been peaceful. So I was like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. So when it changed for me was I think a conversation with a sister.
With a sister.
Yeah, with a sister. And she highlighted how you can also view it in a different way, because let's say maybe all hell's going to break loose on earth and you don't have shelter, you don't have food, then it's not really like a selfish idea for a man maybe to think, okay, I will also bring her into the house so that I can take care of her. I think what went wrong with a lot of us women is we equate that polygamy immediately to romantic relations. But I think also the minister touched upon a verse where it mostly speaks about taking care of that person. So making sure she has a house, making sure she can sleep somewhere and have food. So when she spoke about it in that way, I was like, okay, yeah, in that sense, I can understand. And then it took me a while to get
a few years.
No, not years. It took me a while to get to get adjusted to the idea. And I also had to tell myself, like, you may not like or accept the idea, but where you go wrong is when you're trying to prove that it's wrong, it's unlawful, whilst it happens in the scripture and Elohim allows it. So, and a lot of things in scripture, not everyone is enthusiastic about following certain laws in the beginning, but Elohim does not really care about if you like it or not. If it's lawful, it's lawful. So that's what made me change.
So that's a good point that you make, because last week the minister also touched about the different principles that are addressed when you apply polygamy in a culture, right? Because unfortunately, for many men, according to the testimony of women, like many men get excited about polygamy based on lust, based on the fact that, okay, now I can have multiple wives and enjoy multiple wives. But when you look at it from a biblical standpoint, as the minister rightfully touched last week, the idea of polygamy had a lot to do with, let's say, family structure and how to take care of each other as a family. for example, he extensively talked about how widows were taken care of in the Hebrew community. And he also, I think, gave the example of how, for example, when a woman loses her husband, that she can still marry the brother of the husband, so that she doesn't have to go out and look for a stranger to marry. And I think that, as you said in your answer, in those cultures where polygamy is practiced, there's no such thing as the social welfare system that we have nowadays. So that makes it a bit different. But then my question is polygamy still something of the 21st century, right? Because the rules that govern polygamy had to do with a woman being taken care of, a woman having shelter, having somewhere to go. But nowadays, you don't really need, let's say, according to how we view society nowadays, you don't really need a man for that.
Yeah.
Right? So how would you place polygamy in a modern context? So how would polygamy be practiced today?
In this society,
yeah, in this, like in
21st
century, because what we are seeing in Amsterdam, in Europe, slowly but surely the same mindset is also now in Africa, it's also now in Arabia, it's also now in China, in India, all over the world. We are kind of developing the similar mindsets, right? So first question to you, AP, is like, how would polygamy have to be practiced in today's world?
Do you mean the Western world?
Let's take the Western world, because we live in Europe. So how would polygamy function in where we live?
No, if you have money, you have place, you have an agreement with both of your partners, you can make it work. One live on the other side, one live in east, one live in west. You jump up and down. Yeah. And that's how I would say it. And just agreement, just talk with each other. If you have enough money to do it, to take care of both of them, if you have enough space in your head to take the heat for both of them, then why not? If you can handle it.
Is it advisable? Would you advise it in based on where we live, based on let's say how economics work in the Western world, in the Netherlands, in Europe? Is that something that you could advise?
Now, if you look at the number of the death and the ages of how young we black men, I'm talking now more about the black men, how we die. You might say it's better to think about it, because people
to think about engaging in polygamy.
Now, listen, we black people, we die from arguments with your partner. You will find yourself cheating while that is not needed. You will find yourself with so many diseases came from depression and all this stuff. I will advise a person, if you can handle it, if you see the need of it, you do it. If you cannot, if you see no need for it, don't do it. Because if you are not ready, you will die young. If you are not ready for polygamy, don't do it. You will die young. If you cannot handle it in the Western world, don't. If you can, fine. If you have the money, fine. If you have the space, the time, the heart, the patience, the endurance. But if you
What about you? What about you, Brittany? Like, we have kind of seen, like, when we take biblical examples, we see the examples that you mentioned: Abraham with multiple wives, Jacob with multiple wives, David with multiple wives. We see the examples in Scripture, and we are talking about it today. So, according to you, like, how would polygamy look like in modern society? How can people make this thing work? Actually, is it even possible to make this thing work?
To be honest, in this society, having multiple women is extra headache. Like, it's different. To be honest, the women here are a little bit more. How can I phrase this?
A little bit more.
A little bit more spicy, a little bit more. No, I'm not joking, to be honest. And I also had conversation with some of the brothers. They said the same thing. They would not. Here in this Western world, it's really different. And maybe the only way it would work is, as the brother would say, someone lives in Amsterdam. Oh, someone lives in Amsterdam West. Maybe that would work, but even then, it is different because the mindset of the women here is also different. That's spicy was maybe not the most appropriate word, but that mindset will make it a little bit difficult to live with each other in one house, unless you come to that state of, you know what, this is not. I go back to that romantic part because that is really what has ruined this idea for a lot of people. But if you can leave that outside, then it might work. But in this society, I would not do it. I would not advise it. Just
you are a woman.
Keep your life just very simple and very peaceful.
Yeah. No, I can understand. And I was yesterday I was reading some. Maybe you can maybe do you have the screenshot that I sent you? Yesterday I was reading something else. I was wait one sec. Yeah, I was reading something about let's say my culture. I was going through different books, and I came across a piece which has to do with polygamy. And can you put it on the screen? I'll just try to read it. I couldn't edit the white part in the middle, but I'll just read it. And it says, if a man has many wives, this is talking about the Congolese culture in the 17th century. It says, if a man has many wives, each in turn dresses his victuals and holds herself honored in waiting on him at the table, and then in receiving at his hand the leavings for herself and children. Now this is the piece that I want to touch. It says, the husband, in order not to excite jealousy among his wives, uses no familiarity with any of them. He always dwells alone in his hut, and each of them in hers with her children. This separation of dwelling does not prevent differences from arising among them now and then, which the husband, according to the usage of country, blah blah blah. So the point is that even in those societies where polygamy is practiced, you can remove it, son. Now you can even see that even in those days, what you are saying nowadays about a woman preferring maybe one, or they still having beef and issues, it was something that was happening. So in order to make it work, it was essential for the man not to use any romantic, aromatic, spicy conversations and relations where the other people were present. So I think that that would be really like a mindset change in today's view, because that is what we base relationships on in today's society, right? Based on being romantic with each other, right? So how should you then, like as a woman maybe, how can you should you do away with that mindset, or how should you combine those two elements with each other?
For women, it's normal, it's natural to want affection or to see it in a certain type of way. I think that's just how we are wired. But how I have to really think about the words that I'm going to use. I guess don't expect too much of it. Like, I think if you would think about, like, okay, I'm going to get this, I'm going to receive this, all his attention is going to be on me 24/7, that then you would be disappointed. You will get disappointed in life. So no, but really, if you want to maybe enter into this, or your partner wants to enter into this, don't expect too much. It was a very good excerpt that you used, because that is also often where it goes wrong when you have multiple wives. How are you going to divide your attention? They probably all want to see that affection in a very different way, so it's not going to work. So either you have to lower your expectations, or yeah, have that in mind. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
And I think in my like final question that I have towards my brother APC, like when we go back to the teaching that we had last week. So the reason why I asked these type of questions is because I think that this is a teaching which is really like listening to a teaching like this is really different from applying or trying to apply a teaching like this. That's why I'm asking questions that have to do with applying this understanding or this doctrine in modern times. But I have one question that has to do with a teaching, like um what is that something which you learned about the teach from the teaching? Is there something new that you added to your knowledge based on a teaching? Like, has the teaching given you maybe a new reason why to consider uh, a polygamy?
What I've learned from the teachings is that the rules, the doctrines of man, the things that we verzinnen, it is killing us. The things that we think is better for us, it is killing us. The Bible is a yeah, it is clear on so many stuff, but we come with our own feelings and thoughts and how we want to see things, but eventually these things are killing us. A lot of things is killing us, and if you want to do research and see the numbers on which age we are dying, and how the people back in the days is because of the things that we think is good for us. Yeah, it is sad. It is really really sad how we can go against a book that is there to help us, but we want to make a way to make things so easier for us, but that way is killing us. It is killing us. Many people are now in a situation where they've been labeled as a cheater, but if you go look in the scripture you will find something different. It's because of yeah, it's because of this Western society. We have find now a way to live is kind of sad. It's kind of sad. And the ones that gave us these ways, they live longer than us. It's sad. It is really, really sad if you think and you look at people and you take that book. I sometimes cannot understand how people can read that book and still come with certain reasoning. It is kind of sad.
And
Yeah.
so thank you for that. And this is really the concluding question about maybe how what are some steps maybe to really, let's say, distanciate yourself from this Western ideology, because I think that the root of many issues, not only talking about this topic is maybe talking about relationships, but there are many other things which we do in our life which has its roots in Western society, which is actually against scripture, and it's against what the Bible teaches. So maybe you guys have an advice for people on how to try to distanciate themselves from the principles and the things that they have been taught, maybe from church, maybe from Western society, to get to a point where they can really embrace biblical and also Bantu culture. So what would you say to someone which hasn't been able to do that yet? How would they come to the point where they can give the biblical and the Bantu culture also a place in their mind, in how they live? Should they first go and study certain topics? What should they do?
Yeah, I guess it's be curious as to what is written in the scriptures, because sometimes we read the story and we just leave it there, but when you're reading, ask yourself questions. Oh, why is this happening? Where does this come from? And then try to research the topic maybe in a broader sense. I can assume that most people don't really ask themselves, why do these patriarchs, why do these people have multiple wives? Oh, what is that? Where does it come from? Are there certain cultures that practice it as well? Yes, no. I treat that subject like with an open mind, or go in it with an open mind, because you may find out things that maybe are unfamiliar to you, and because it's unfamiliar to you, you're against it. But if you enter it with an open mind, then you can receive that information, and then slowly but surely you can have a different perspective. And as I said, you don't have to agree, but the problem is when you're going to oppose what Elohim says is good or is okay. That is where you're going wrong. So I would approach it that way.
Yeah, and start to love your own culture. Love yourself also a bit, and stop following this white man stuff. Love yourself. Love your forefathers, how they did it. Don't look at these buildings, these smartphones, because we are now in a modern time. So those things of old times doesn't apply to us being in hut, because the verse that you just read, many people will see like, oh, nee man, hut. Now we have buildings, we leven goed. Yeah man, love yourself. Stop. I will advise you that blue Bible that the Jehovah Witness are giving, throw it away. Read the Old Testament for a while and believe in it. Stop that new stuff. Man, it is unfortunately, it is really killing us. It is not only touching on polygamy, on so many stuff. It is the thing that Malcolm X said, who taught you to hate yourself? It is this kind of stuff.
And so thank you guys for that advice, and I would also agree with what the brother said. I think that one of the most important points when it comes to everything biblical is understanding who the biblical people are. If you don't know who the true Hebrews are, there's no topic in the Bible which you will be able to place in the correct context. So when you know who the original Hebrews are, who they were and who they are today, and you study their culture, you'll be able to place even this topic in the proper context. So as the brother said, love who you are, study your own people, study your culture, and try to find out how they live their life. You will be able to see that they live their life according to biblical laws and principles. So thank you guys for this conversation. Last week we touched part 1 of the topic polygamy according to the Old Testament, and today in a short break of 5 minutes we'll touch part 2 of polygamy according to the New Testament. So tell a friend to tune in. If you have any questions, drop them in the YouTube live chat or Facebook live chat, and we'll try to answer them as we go. See you in a short 5 to 10 minutes.
Je sais que tu es le même, Seigneur. Et qu'en toi, il n'y a ni changement et ni ombre de variation. C'est pour cela que je te prie au travers de ces chants, oh Dieu. Agis, s'il te plaît. Polona silasi Katina buloko Adelela kiawe Kolaya nula kibango Maipe sikolo Okola yo mwanitira Sembula loboko Kumbona ye kumisama Natanga polo na silasi Bango katina buloko Abelela kiawe Kolo yano la kibalo Maipe sikoyo Okola yo manite Sembola loboko Kombo na ye kumisama Mulami mwipe Esua jinanga Mulami mwipe Si wewe Yesu azurara Yozali nzambe Nzambe avinanga Yozali nzambe Yobongwanite Elina kamele Yalikolo ya kamele Abelela kiawe Yanula kibango Maipe loloyo Lokola yo bongwanite Imarela sama. Hey Yahweh, kembisanga na kunzima. Asiya mwana na nzambe, kembisanga na kunzima. Hey Yahweh, kembisanga na kunzima. Asiya mwana na nzambe, kembisanga na kunzima. Tondi ba pasi, kembisanga na kunzima. Okile tondi minyoko, kembisanga na kunzima. Hey Yahweh, kembisanga na kunzima. Mwana na nzambe. Yes. Hey Yahweh, kembisanga na kunzima. Asiya mwana na nzambe. Sharararararara ekumbe ai. Angalia Baba, machozi yangu. Baba eba. Sharararararara ekumbe ai. Mausikia Baba, maombi yangu. Baba eba. Sharararararara ekumbe ai. Shuka leo Baba, shuka leo, shuka leo. Baba eba. Sharararararara ekumbe ai. Angalia Baba, machozi yangu. Baba eba. Sharararararara ekumbe ai. Angalia Baba, machozi yangu. Shuka leo Baba, shuka leo Baba.
Yes, shalom, shalom, shalom unto all of our listeners and viewers, wheresoever you may be found this morning or this afternoon, or whenever you will have the time to tune in and listen to today's podcast. We thank Elohim for yet another opportunity that He has granted unto us to be alive, to be functioning, and to be found in your midst. All of us know and can testify that life is filled with so many challenges. And whatsoever atmosphere you find yourself, life is filled with challenges. The poor, they look at the rich and they wish that they could become like the rich, thinking that being rich will solve all of their problems. And even though it is said that money answereth all things, at the same time the rich, they themselves are found having different kind of temptation. Their temptation is not to become rich, but their temptation is to abstain from some of the corruption that riches bring. And we that are living in Europe, there is not a poor person living here, because the infrastructure will not allow you to be poor. The government will be your security net in case that things go wrong. So all of us in Europe, our fight is to abstain from the corruption that possessing has, whilst our brothers and sisters that are living in the motherland, their struggle is simply for basic survival. We are living in the Netherlands and other parts of Europe where
if you look at it from a geographical perspective, we are living below sea level. Yet, by the wisdom of the people that are living here, they have been able to build dike, as they call it, that keep the water out. So you will rarely read about floodings in a country like the Netherlands that is below the sea level. But people from the continent, people from the Congo and other parts, there have been floodings in the capital of Kin. And many people have died. Many people have died whilst the country is above sea level, simply because of a lack of infrastructure. So these are the woes and the troubles that many of our people are facing, and we thank Elohim that He has remembered us, and we continue to hope and pray that He will remember our brothers and our sisters in the motherland, that He will keep them strong, that He will be a hedge of protection around them, that He may look upon the leaders and have compassion, that He may remove this blindness from our eyes, that we will turn away from vanity and wickedness and greed, and that we may make something of our lives, because it is difficult. So, brothers and sisters, with regards to today's topic, I don't even like such topics, but let's see how it will go, because it is written that we ought to preach the word in season, out of season. Whether you like it or not, you just say it. So it is very cyclic today. We'll go through it and see what Yah will allow to be ministered through us today. So the topic, polygyny, according to the New Testament. The brother laid a good foundation last week. Unfortunately, he was interrupted, but you all have been able to catch the gist of the message. So, intro, please read for us.
Today we will continue our study on the laws pertaining to marriage and divorce from a New Testament perspective. We have heard many doctrines from the many churches concerning this topic, and because of this, many people have been accused of adultery whilst being innocent. And in effect, many people have been acquitted of adultery whilst being guilty of the very act. We will shed light on this confusion and hopefully alleviate some errors going forward.
There is a lot of confusion there. There is so much confusion going on where you will see people in the church. He's a deacon, he's an elder, or worse even, a pastor or whatever. He has married, divorced, 2 to 3 times. And based on Christian theology and ideology, that person is fine. He's living righteous and he's good. And then there is someone who walks around and has 2 wives, divorced none of them, takes care of both of them. But based upon Christian ideology, that person is a sinner because he's committing adultery. The confusion is messed up. So now, as long as I can divorce one and move to the other, even if I do it 10 times, based upon Christian thinking, it is fine. They'll be like, no, brother. 10 times is too much. So, what's the difference between 2 times and 10 times? Who draws the line and who decides when it is too much? So there is a lot of confusion going on, and we will see. We will remove our own sentiments, because the truth be told, our sentiments are messed up anyways, because many of us, being men or women, we may be Hebrew or Bantu or black in color, but we are Babylonians in mindset. So many men walking around, Babylonians in mindset. Many females, ladies walking around, they are like Bounty. You know, Bounty is brown on the outside. They put cocoa butter and they are shiny. You're like, wow, wonderful. But the inside, when you open the inside, some men, some women, they are whiter than Europeans. Meaning the mindset is Babylonian. So it is with this Babylonian mindset that we read the scriptures, and we are no longer willing to abide by what the scripture says. What we want is to fit the scriptures around our way of thinking. And that is where the confusion kicks in. Because this Bible we read, it is not Western. So if you try to, it's like me being a Bantu man, I will try to read a Chinese or Asian book, but from a Bantu man perspective. So where the Bantu man usually eats fufu or flour, the Chinese eat rice. So if I, being a Bantu man, am reading something from a Chinese perspective, where they make rice and rice balls, if I try to apply it based on my logic, but where I come from, we don't have rice or rice balls, we have fufu, I should try to make fufu from it. But if the Chinese reads it, it will be like, hey, you are trying to appropriate something that is not yours, and you're trying to fit your ideology around our way of living. I don't know if you understand that example. What it simply means is some things are not translatable one-to-one if you don't apply the right context. Because this is a Bantu book, you have to adapt based on a Bantu perspective. And then you will see that from a Bantu perspective, Bantus have many wives. It has always been like that from ancient days. You will still see it today in some villages. And the Arabs, being blacks in ancient times, kept the culture. So you will see a household with many wives in an Arab community, they are flourishing. They have money. They have possessions. There is order and there is calmness and there is peace. Because in their country, based on their traditions, it's the order of the day. But being in Babylon, trying to read the Hebrew Bible, we are now trying to fit our ideologies and say that the Bible said something that it didn't say. And then we are trying to claim and enforce the Bible based upon one verse from the New Testament where Shaul says, it is profitable that every man should have his own wife. One verse. And you use one verse to uproot all the other instances where it says, and David was my friend. And the king was wise in that he took many wives. So people, content.
So we'll look at the genealogy of the Messiah and his brides. We'll look at the chapter Matthew 19. We'll look at the term polygyny, the term polygamy, and the term adultery. We'll look at the sayings of Paul and 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. We'll look at divorce in the New Testament and the hidden reason behind the dissemination of the husband of one wife doctrine. And then we'll end with a conclusion.
Yes, so let's start with the man who the Christians claim to idolize, but they don't even know him. The man who says when he comes, he will turn all the Gentile nations into his slaves. But they claim they love him. So, Matthew 1.
The book of the generation of Yahushua the Messiah.
The book of the generation of Yahushua HaMashiach.
The son of David.
He's the son of who?
The son of David.
How many wives did David have? So they tell you, the book of the genealogy of the Messiah, the son of David. How many wives did David have? And perhaps, who was David's son?
Solomon.
How many wives did Solomon have? Who was David's father?
Jesse.
How many wives did Jesse have? For your information, Jesse had many wives, and David was one of the children of one of the wives that was not the first wife. So David was like a castaway amongst all the children of Jesse, because he was one, maybe he was even the wife of one of Jesse's concubines. That's why he was not really respected amongst his brethren. So David's father, and you know David comes from Judah. You know Judah. You know Judah. Judah had many. Judah did things. People. Judah. Hey, great anyone. So David, the Messiah, who was the son of David, continue.
The son of Abraham.
How many wives did Abraham have? People. All these Bantu men. How many wives did Abraham have? Not only wives, but also concubines. Abraham, the father of all the Arabs, how many wives did he have? But he was called the friend of Elohim. And so much that Elohim even warned the angel of death when he was about to go and fetch the soul of Abraham. He said, you may go, but make sure you appear friendly even at the last moment of his death, because Abraham is my friend. But he had many wives. Continue.
Abraham begat Isaac.
Isaac remained cool. He was one of the few that remained with one. I don't know why, but respect. Continue.
Isaac begat Jacob.
And
Jacob, Judas and his brethren.
Jacob, so you're like, oh, he's the God of the 12 tribes. Last week we covered it. Jacob did not make the 12 tribes with one wife. If my memory serves me correct, he had 2 wives and 2 concubines. People. And these were the friends of Elohim. 2 wives, and he didn't stop with 2 wives. And we haven't even dealt with the topic of concubines, because we know hell will break loose. These are small things. Small things. He had 2 wives and 2 concubines. People. Continue.
And Jacob begat Judas and his brethren.
I don't even want to talk about Judas. Continue.
And Judas begat Phares and Zara of Tamar.
Many wives.
And Phares begat Esrom. And Esrom begat Aram. And Aram begat Aminadab. And Aminadab begat Nashon. And Nashon begat Salmon. And Salmon begat Boaz.
Many wives.
Of Rechab. And Boaz begat Obed of Ruth. And Obed begat Jesse.
Many wives and concubines.
And Jesse begat David the king.
Many wives and concubines.
And David the king begat Solomon of
He had more wives in human history and concubines.
Begat Solomon of her that had been the wife of Urias. And Solomon begat Roboam.
Many wives.
And Roboam begat Abiah. And Abiah begat Asa. And Asa begat Josaphat.
You can just stop there and then read my conclusion in red.
Just like 99% of all Bantu people.
People, are you reading this? Just like 99% of all Bantu people.
The Messiah himself is born from a polygynous ancestry.
So, what will we say then? What about the Bible verse that says, Elohim will visit the iniquity of the fathers to the children? So, if the Messiah bloodline was filled with sin because of many wives, it means that when he was born in sin. Because the sin should have come from Judah all the way to the Messiah. But he was born perfect. He was blameless before Elohim and the angels of the order. So what does that mean? It means that many wives, if done under the right rules, is not a sin. It's not a sin. So remember this, people, when you're trying to westernize the Bible. So we are continuing. The Messiah and his brides.
Matthew 5 from verse 17.
Read.
Think not that I am come to destroy the law.
He's saying, I have not come here to destroy the law.
Or the prophets.
Or the prophets.
I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill.
I did not come here to destroy, but I came to fulfill.
For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass.
One of the prophets that gave the laws were who? Moses, right? So he will quote Moses. Do you know how many wives Moses had? Many are like, oh, Moses was with Zipporah. Yeah, and? Because Zipporah was from, was it Midian? But they were also angry because he took an Ethiopian woman. People. But he was the one who spoke face to face with the angel. And the angel saw no sin. People. So the Messiah said, do not think that I have come to destroy the laws. Because many people are like, yeah, when the Messiah came, everything of the Old Testament was no more. So even if they were allowed to have many wives, when the Messiah came, he abolished it. He said, I did not come to abolish nothing. I came to set in order. So then listen at the example the Messiah will give about himself.
Matthew 25 from 1. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened.
Then the kingdom of heaven shall be equal to.
Unto 10 virgins.
How many virgins?
10 virgins.
No, one.
Unto 10 virgins.
No, one.
The kingdom of heaven will be likened unto 10
No,
virgins.
Elohim has one wife.
It will be likened unto 10
virgins. Do you remember the story of Jeremiah? When he said, behold, 2 sisters, and both of them were my wives. He said, Aholah and Aholibah. Meaning Judah and the northern kingdom. So he said, I had 2 wives. He has many wives. So the Messiah is saying, behold, the kingdom of heaven shall be likened unto 10 virgins,
which took their lamps.
You are not even a virgin, yet you want a husband for yourself. He's saying, behold, 10 virgins. Read.
Which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 of them were foolish. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage. And the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgin, saying, my master, open to us. But he answered and said, verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh.
So he's telling you, he was chatting with 10. And of the 10, 5 were worthy, 5 were not. So he left the 5, but he married 5. So what example is he telling you? He married 5 and he left 5. And Shaul was said in another way. Continue reading.
1 Corinthians 6 from 15.
Know ye not
that your bodies are the members of the Messiah. Shall I then take the members of the Messiah and make them the members of an harlot? By no means. The Messiah is one with the members, which are plural of his body, the church or the assembly, and one spirit with them all. This is the rad part. The Messiah, in fulfilling the law, is the perfect husband to each individual member, providing them with the clothing such as his robes of righteousness, according to Matthew and Revelation, food as he is the bread of life, according to John, and hidden manna, also found in Revelation 2, which Yah's people are presently feasting on at the wedding supper of the Lamb.
Meaning, because many of us claim we are, I think in Lingala we even said, Yesu Mobalia, but what do we say? Yesu Mobalia Basi Bele. Meaning, Yahshua is the husband with many wives. Because You claim you are his wife. I claim I'm his wife. Everybody claims they are his wife, but he's one. And being one, he does not discriminate amongst us, but he makes sure all of us have our food, have our drink, meaning he's taking care and he's taking the role of a responsible husband that has many wives, fulfilling the law that you read in Deuteronomy where it says, if you should take another wife, make sure you do not defer from providing all the basic needs unto your first wife. So the Messiah is giving you examples. Shaul is telling you how we, being many, are one member and the Messiah is one with us, and he's providing us with all our needs. So people, what you guys are interpreting and saying is from a Babylonian mindset. But if you put the scriptures and compare it, you will see the Bible is saying something different altogether. And this was the Messiah. This was the Messiah. So, we will continue so that you can come with your own conclusion. Now, the Messiah in Matthew 19.
From verse 3. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him.
Now listen, when the Pharisees came, they did not come with pure intentions. The Pharisees came tempting him.
And saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause?
Listen at the question. Is it allowed for a man to put away his wife for every cause?
And he answered and said unto them,
and he, being the Messiah, answered them and said,
have you not read
have you not read
that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female?
He made them male and female.
And said,
For
this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore Elohim has joined together, let not man put asunder.
And that's where he stopped. There is no any cause here. That is where he stopped. And the reason why he referred you to Genesis is because he knows the mind of the people that came to ask him. Because they would continue to say, and what about fornication? That's the claim that many people now make to divorce their wives. But when he referred you to Genesis, do you know what happened in Genesis? Do you know the sin of Eve? People, do you know what she did? She did not eat an apple. She did things. Adam knew it. That's why he called her the mother of all living. Why did not Adam put her away and then plead unto Elohim to make him another? But he forgave her and they moved on. So the Messiah is telling you, listen, if you marry, you marry. If you marry, you marry. Full stop. Because that is his first answer. But it's just like sometimes when someone asks you something, you give him a straight response, and he doesn't like it. He asks you again. Sometimes when you get angered, you're like, wait, you what? Now let me answer you according to your folly. So that's why I said full stop. And then continue reading.
Matthew 19 from 7.
After that, the Messiah answered them that they were not satisfied. So
they say unto him,
they ask him again,
why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement?
If it is true what you are saying, Messiah, that what Elohim had joined together, let no man separate, full stop. Why then Moses?
Why did he give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? He said unto them,
and then he told them,
Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives. But from the beginning it was not so.
So you see, he confirms it again, telling you what Moses did there was because he saw many of you were dying. So he asked for permission and we granted it him for a season. But from the very beginning, once again, Elohim is not approved of you putting away your wife. So he confirmed it again. But read.
And I say unto you,
and I tell you,
whosoever shall put away his wife,
who will put away his wife,
except it be for fornication,
and
shall marry another, commits adultery.
And
whoso marrieth her which is put away, does commit adultery.
So the Messiah answered them there, but if you look at the way he answered them 2 times. First, he told them his real thought, But then he told them something else because they were stubborn. So you will read and you will see that in Mark, listen to what he says in Mark.
This is Mark chapter 10 from verse 2. And the Pharisees came to him and asked him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife? Tempting him. And he answered and said unto them, What did Moses command you? And they said, Moses suffered to write a bill of divorcement and to put her away. Yahushua answered and said unto them, For the hardness of your heart he wrote you this precept. But from the beginning of the creation of Yah, he made them male and female. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. So then there are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore Yah has joined together, let not man put asunder. And in the house...
You see, that's it. He stopped there. He stopped there. He did not even speak about he stopped there. He said, Moses did it because you guys were stubborn. But from Yah's perspective, when you are married, you are married. So in the house, his disciples asked him again.
Again of the same matter. And he said unto them, Whosoever shall put away his wife and marry another commits adultery against her. And if a woman shall put away her husband and be married to another, she commits adultery. And then Luke chapter 16:18, Whosoever puts away his wife and marries another commits adultery. And whosoever marries her that is put away from her husband commits adultery.
So then I wrote in red,
why does the two accounts of the gospel sound different?
Even it's actually not two, it's actually three accounts. Luke, Mark, Matthew.
Matthew says in the case of fornication, you can put her away. Mark and Luke, however, does not mention the caveat of fornication. It immediately speaks of adultery if you put away your wife. How come?
Now listen, if you then, just think, if you then go back to Matthew, he says, except in the case of fornication, you may put away your wife. But people, how does a married wife commit fornication? How does a married wife commit fornication? How does a married wife commit fornication? Because it is saying, if a man can put away his wife if she has committed fornication. But once a woman is married and she sleeps with another man, it is not fornication. Fornication is only the case if a man sleeps with another wife apart from his wife. Apart from his wife. Then it is fornication. Because a man is allowed to sleep with many. But I will explain that in a second. If a wife, however, sleeps with someone else apart from her husband, it is not fornication, it is adultery. In other words, people, a married woman cannot commit fornication. That's why I referred you to what happened in the book of Genesis. When Eve made that mistake, Adam did not put her away. He did not put her away. So that's why you see in Mark and in Luke, the Bible is being very precise and clear. Once you are married, you are married. You are married. She may make mistakes, whatever. You guys are bound. You guys are bound. So go to the next slide and look at the two definitions. Left is the definition for porneia, which is fornication. Right is the definition for adultery. Read what the definition of fornication is.
So starting at the bottom left, reading the outline of biblical usage, it talks about the word porneia, which...
You mean the upper left? Bottom left is the upper left, right? Porneia is up.
Yeah, okay. It says porneia at the upper left, and now going down to the outline of biblical usage, it says illicit sexual intercourse, adultery, fornication, homosexuality, lesbianism, intercourse with animals. And then B, it says sexual intercourse with close relatives, according to Leviticus 18, and sexual intercourse with a divorced man or woman. It's a metaphor for the worship of idols or of the defilement of idolatry as incurred by eating the sacrifices offered to idols.
So there you will see that porneia being a container begrip, it includes everything that has to do with sexual immorality. That is what porneia is. If you are a man sleeping with a man, you are under the sin of porneia. If you are performing bestiality, you are under the sin of porneia. It's a container begrip for everything that has to do with sexual immorality. But if you take the definition of adultery on the right, it
now
says,
reading from the right, I think it says mokayo according to that translation. And going down to the outline of biblical usage, it says to have unlawful intercourse with another man's wife, to commit adultery with.
To have unlawful intercourse with another man's wife.
It says another's wife.
To commit intercourse or to have unlawful intercourse with another's wife. So if a man, and we know we're not talking about a woman having unlawful, so we're not even talking about that. So if a man sleeps with another person's wife, he has committed adultery. But should he sleep with another person who's a female but is no one's wife, based upon the biblical laws, it is not adultery. But a woman, if you take the book of Romans, we will get there soon. But a woman, if she sleeps with another man, that man being married or unmarried, if she sleeps with another person except for her husband, she is committing adultery. She's committing adultery. And because the Messiah knew that, hey, a married woman cannot commit fornication, that is simply another word for him to say, luister dan, you cannot put your wife away once you guys are married. Because if you take the story of, what's it called? Mary and Joseph. That is the only case where that is applicable. Mary and Joseph were espoused, which means she was engaged to Joseph. But during the moment of being espoused, you are not allowed to sleep with that woman because you guys are not yet married. So if you have a woman, you guys are engaged, and during the time of engagement, she decides to sleep with another man, then she's caught in the act of fornication. So what did Joseph do then? Joseph was like, I will now put her away because she's found to be pregnant with someone else, but I've never slept with this woman. You see? That is the case of fornication where the Bible speaks of. But many of you already know that once you pass the stage of being engaged and you guys are married, she can no longer commit fornication. She can no longer commit fornication. I know this is so, maar je moet nadenken of what I'm saying. So now, what the Christian churches do is this. They marry, and even when they marry, they take vows until death do us part. And in none of their vows do they say, we will remain together until the point of adultery or fornication. None of them say that in their vows. In all of their vows, they say, for health, what do they say? For riches and poor, for health and sickness, until death do us part, right? But look at 99% of all the divorces that happen in the church. It's either money or one of the two slept around. And because one of the two slept around, they run to the book of Matthew and they say, you see, in case of fornication, I can divorce. But a married woman cannot commit fornication, 1. 2, you guys made vows. And none of you in your vows said, except in the case of fornication or divorce. So you are lying twice. And then the husband puts away his wife and takes another wife. And now that wife that is left, she's now in the heat because she's very young. And you are not going to tell me she will remain alone forever. So soon and very soon, the first 2 to 3 years, you will see she will get very thin and she's crying, she's weeping, she's sad, she only wears black. Then all of a sudden you're like, hey, she went on holidays. You know the movie how Stella got her groove back? All of a sudden she went on holidays and she met this Jamaican. Yeah. So then she's moving around, and you guys know when she's bouncing around. And then when she comes back, the friends are like, hey, is she the hood? Yeah, you don't know what happened. So then she comes back and she's revived. So when she's revived, she will meet another Negro. And that Negro will tell her, I want the crucifixion type of love. I want to love you. So, yeah. So then she will be in love. And then she will go to a pastor again. Be like, Pastor, I met this guy. And he's so gentle in comparison to the other one. He makes breakfast. So, all the thing. And that Bantu man is be like, I want to do the things your first husband never did. So the woman is all in love. She goes to the pastor, and the pastor is like, okay. Please, my daughter, take some time. Think about it. 3 months, 4 months. 3 months, 4 months pass. They come again. They're like, Pastor, we want to get married, but we want your blessings. And then the pastor's like, okay, he has done what he has to do. And the Bible says, in case of fornication, so things went wrong, but we pray and that God will bless this second union. And then they go to the church and they bless the union, and then they consider them husband and wife. And then they consider them husband and wife. But, young Samuel, jump 2 slides, go to the sayings of Paul. Romans 7, and listen to this.
Romans 7 from verse 1.
Listen.
Know ye not, brethren?
Do you not know, son of man,
For I speak,
brethren, for I speak to them who claim to have read the Bible.
How that the law has dominion over a man as long as he lives. For the woman which has an husband,
listen, for the woman who has a husband
is bound by the law.
You are bound
by the law to her husband, so long as he liveth.
No, except the case of fornication.
So long as he lives.
No, except the case of adultery.
So long as he liveth.
The woman that had a husband is bound to her husband for as long
as he liveth.
Listen.
But if the husband be dead,
but if the nigga dies,
she's loose from the law of her
loose.
husband.
Like TDJ, loose. If the Bantu man dies, then she is loose
from the law of her husband. So then, if while her husband lives,
but if he's walking around, bouncing around, but he's still breathing,
she be married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress.
And what if the man is from Jamaica?
She shall be called an adulteress.
He's very gentle.
She shall be called an adulteress.
He cooks breakfast.
She shall be called an adulteress.
People. So what does your son of man have to say with regards to this? So you see, people, based on this verse alone, many people that are living in churches now, they are deacons and elders. You people have made your wives to become adulteress. And because you have put away your wife and now you are living around, you also are committing the same act. So you see what the world now justifies, and it's not even the world now that is said, what the church now justifies, the Bible says that is adultery and that is fornication. So what do you have to say now? So what do you have to say now? Oh, you women that are divorced and are remarried, and you know your first husband is still alive, walking around. You are in adultery. And this is a heartbreaking message. You are in adultery. Based on what the Bible says. And your son of man, to make you happy, did not teach you this.
But it is plain and simple, written in the Bible. People. So we are continuing now. Sam, go to the slide where it says adultery according to the Western world. So read that.
So, adultery according to the Western world, this is from the Legal Information Institute. It says adultery is a form of extramarital sexual intercourse between a married person and a person who is not a party to the marriage. Continuing. In a fault divorce, adultery is one of the grounds for divorce.
Read the beginning again. So, adultery is
a form of extramarital
form of extramarital
sexual intercourse between a married person.
Listen, now they're saying between a married person, whether you are a man or a woman.
Between a married person and a person who is not a party to the marriage.
If you then sleep with someone else with who you are not married to, you are committing adultery. But we have just read adultery from the biblical perspective, and we see that they are not the same. And it is so sad how the church claims to be not of the world, yet they adhere to the definition of adultery based upon what the world says. Not knowing that this is adultery's definition based upon the Western world, based upon Babylon. But it is not adultery based upon the definition of the Bible. Because based upon the definition of the Bible, if a married woman sleeps with someone else except for her husband, she is committing adultery. However, if a married man sleeps with another man's wife, he's committing adultery. If he sleeps with another wife who's not married, it is not adultery. It is fornication if it is only done for the purpose of pleasure. If he sleeps with another woman who he then intends to marry, and therefore then he marries her, it is not adultery. So the rules are not equal for the wife and for the husband. That's why when they tell you we are all the same, we have never been the same. The men are allowed to be priests, the women are not. Men are allowed to have more than one wife, women are not. The men will be held responsible for their household on the day of judgment, women are not. So, to whom much is given, much is expected. Also from an emotional, mental, physiological perspective, a man can sleep with 10 women and have no attachment for none of them. But let a woman sleep with a man. It is even scientifically proven how the DNA of the man, when it is inserted inside of the woman, it even enters her very bones. People, not all people are equal. And Elohim knew it. And Elohim knew it. Men are literally capable of having 2-3 women and have children with all 3 of them, and they will be able to divide their time equal. But let a wife have 2 men. She won't know where to move. She will not know how to move. Because they are not circular. Men are very, very strictly business. Strictly business. So people, I'm not justifying or condemning anything because I don't have any interest here. I'm just telling you what is plainly written. To tell these people to stop lying. Because of this teaching, many people are now justified in the churches, but they are all in adultery. Because what you have to wonder when it comes to adultery, if the laws of adultery were so simple and everyone could just marry and remarry, why would the Elohim say on the day of judgment, I will judge the adulteress? Because you only need to divorce and marry someone else, and then you are fine. It is because many people that claim to be married today, on that day of judgment, he will tell them, you people were living in adultery. That will be the shock. That will be the shock. So, that was adultery based on the Western perspective. That's a perspective that the churches take, which is a false perspective. So we clear that. Now, read what it says below. The U.S. law on this matter.
The U.S. law on this matter reflects the ideas of Roman culture, or Roman or European culture, and the apostate Roman Catholic Church, and is not aligned with the biblical definition.
At all, just like we have seen. So now jump to the case, now it becomes interesting, of polygyny versus polygamy versus adultery. Read.
So reading on the left, polygyny is adultery.
First, read the definition of polygamy.
So according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary,
It says,
polygamy means a marriage in which a spouse of either sex may have more than one mate at the same time. That is the definition of polygamy
so
according to the
polygamy
dictionary.
means a spouse
Of either sex,
of either sex
may have
more than
one mate at the same time.
one mate at the same time. That is not what the Bible approves. The Bible does not approve polygamy because it would mean that the wife can have more than one husband. When you are in a polygamous relationship, it simply means either the wife has many husbands or the husband has many wives. It goes both ways. And the Bible does not approve of that, as we have clearly read so far. What the Bible approves, however, is the one below, polygyny. Read.
The state or practice of having more than one wife or female mate at a time.
You see? That is what the Bible approves. The Bible does not approve polygamy. It approves polygyny. Because Abraham was a polygynous man. David was a polygynous man. Jacob was a polygynous man. But they were not in a polygamous relationship because none of their wives had other husbands. But they, being husbands, had other wives. Yeah? So now read the text on the left.
At one time, we thought that polygyny was the same thing as adultery.
We thought.
Until we actually...
Because the Christian preachers who told us, close your Bible, that's what they told us. So because we were of good faith, that's what Jesus said, the days of faith are over. Don't sit down and, because he told me he's my friend. Who did not the Messiah say, watch and pray? Do you know what that means? It means you have to watch and pray. Meaning, while you are praying, you are watching. So the Bible says the believers of Berea, they were wise in that they would always study the scriptures and see whether the things that were told were so. So your very son of man, your very preacher, he's a suspect. Whenever he preaches, don't mumble and don't speak negative of that person, but watch and pray. Write it down, take your time, and see whether what he says is so. Yeah? So, read.
At one time, we thought that polygyny was the same thing as adultery until we actually took the time to study the matter. Since adultery was punishable by death under the law, and the law allowed, regulated, and as was seen earlier, would command polygyny in certain instances, adultery cannot be seen as synonymous with polygyny.
No.
Men and their wives were not put to death for having polygynous marriages. It is very important that we look to the scriptures to define what adultery is instead of holding to a slanted Western definition of adultery.
So I wrote in red, the sad reality
is that what many classify as adultery is actually not adultery.
Exactly.
If done under the right circumstances.
Exactly.
However, what many today deem as lawful is in actuality adultery.
Meaning marry, remarry, marry, remarry. The women are doing it and are all committing adultery. Yet the church says you are free.
Free. It is actually adultery in the sight of Elohim.
Yes.
So please be very, very careful not to add or take away from the scriptures.
Be careful. That's right. So now, there are no questions somewhere? Okay. Let's move to the sayings of our good brother Paul. I pity the man. How every word this guy has said is always taken out of context. So the saying of Shaul.
Should we reread it?
Of course.
Romans 7 verse 1. Know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how that the law has dominion over a man as long as he lives.
We are not under the law.
The law has dominion over a man.
No problem, but keep on paying your tithe in the church. No problem. Continue.
The law has dominion over a man as long as he lives. For the woman which has an husband is bound by the law to her husband.
The same people, just listen to the hypocrisy found in people. The same people that say we are not under the law are the same people who go to their pastor and say we want to divorce our husband because he has committed adultery. Where in the Bible do they speak of adultery if it is not under the law? Do you see how? That's why you have to smoke ganja and drink alcohol and eat McDonald's at the same time to get the conclusion that these people are getting. Because they are not under the law, but they will divorce based upon a precept that is found in the law. So you have to be very hypocritical and desperate to make this statement. And yet the pastor will approve. So Shaul is saying, know ye not.
That the law has dominion over a man as long as he lives. For the woman which has an husband is bound by the law to her husband so long as he lives. But if the husband be dead, she is loose from the law of her husband. So then if, while her husband lives, she be married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress.
It's plain and simple.
But if her husband be dead, she is free from that law.
It's plain and simple.
So that she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man.
It's plain and simple. And this is Shaul, eh? So read.
1 Corinthians 7.
Now
from 1.
concerning
the things whereof ye wrote unto me,
it is good
for a man not to touch a woman,
nevertheless,
to avoid fornication.
Yes.
Let every man have his own wife,
Uh-huh.
and let every woman have her own husband.
This is what they take. And this is what they use. One verse, eh? This is what they use to justify or the Bible is against many wives. Not forgetting that the Bible says line upon line, precept upon precept. One verse from a New Testament does not negate 90 other verses from the Old and the New. But yet this is what they take. So read.
And verse 10, and unto the married I command, yet not I, but Yah. Let not the wife depart from her husband, but, and if she depart, let her remain unmarried.
No, you see? So, Paul is, according to them, giving them reprieve, but he's also killing them at the same time. That is why I understand now why Shaul said in the book of Romans that in the day of Elohim, men will be judged based upon my doctrine. Because many people will use Shaul on that day to accuse themselves, to justify themselves. So then Shaul will then stand as the judge and say, yeah, but did you also not read this? Because Shaul is the only one that I always read. He says something that is taken out of context, but if you read further, he's actually killing you. So where they use Shaul to justify themselves, here he's saying, listen,
let her remain.
Do not, he's saying that the wife should not depart. But, and if she can't handle the heat and she wants to go, let her remarry.
Let her remain unmarried.
No, except for the case of fornication, let her remarry.
Let her remain unmarried. Or be reconciled to her husband. And let not the husband put away his wife.
You see? No, let him put her away if she commits adultery.
Let not the husband put away his wife.
So what this means is, let's say your husband is Mike Tyson, And sometimes your voice brings him to levels, and he drinks something, and that day he's feeling free. And he gives you 1, 2, 3, and then you're like, if I remain in this house, I will die. What Shaul says then is, please get your stuff, run. However, in your running, do not remarry, because you are still married to that guy. Run, and maybe ask family members to give him counseling. You guys can expel demons out of people, so deliver him from the demon of violence, and then come back. That is what he's saying. That is what he's saying. He's saying, you man, if you see like your wife has tendencies and she drives you bananas and you can't take it, and he's saying like, hey, I should make kind of, so then let her go somewhere, but do not just go and tell her to never return again, because then you will cause her to commit sin, and therefore you will also be sinning. So he's saying there are times that you can cool off, but you guys are still married. This is Shaul. So read. That is why it behooves you to think twice. Yeah, I'm a lady. I know the guy's a player, but I will change him. That's what you do. That's what you do. Yeah, nay, I know, but he really loves me. You know, he's not like that with me, only with that. Okay. So then you marry a player because you have the Holy Ghost, speaking in tongues. You marry the guy and he keeps on playing you. All of a sudden you're like, nay, he's a player. Now you want to divorce him. That's why if you understand that when you are married, you will take your time before you marry. So you always must tell yourself, this woman, she has many faces. One time, she's an angel, and other days, she is Satan herself. Just like you have many faces. Some days you are God. Other days you are Satan. So what you have to ask yourself is, not in the days of her angelic form, but in the days when she is Satan, can I manage? That is the real question of any marriage. If you know that you have the mental fortitude to manage when she's Satan, then you can marry, because when she's Satan, you put your headphones in. you put on your headphones and you live in Wonderland. When she begins to do things, you put on your headphones and you start cooking. You go exercise. You do something. And the days that she sees that you are Satan, she also does her thing. That is what you do in marriage. You manage the storms. That is what Shaul is saying. Because once you guys marry, there is no way out. There is no way out. That is what he's saying. That is what he's saying. So people, continue reading.
So now we are going to look at the meaning of 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. From verse 1.
Yeah.
This is a true saying.
Listen it. This once again they pick on Saul again. This is the true saying.
If a man desire the office of a bishop,
should a man who desires this office, and who read? Should a man desire
the office of a bishop, he desires a good work.
Okay, yeah.
A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife.
Oh, you see? You guys are preaching damnable doctrine. Because he says a bishop must be blameless, the husband of one wife.
Vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, and able to teach.
So that is the condition for a bishop, right? So read verse 12. Let
the deacons
be
the husbands of one wife. Ruling their children and their houses well.
So people, point 1, that deacon part, yeah, in your church and stuff, How many deacons are married in your church? I remember in our church, we had a deacon. They made him a deacon at the age of 19. The guy was not married. But they gave him the title of deacon. You see? No one made mention of all the other conditions. But they made him deacon. Meaning, people in churches, they literally pick and choose. Because what this verse is saying then is that both bishops and elders, you cannot exercise this office except if you are married. Which makes no sense. Which makes no sense. Because a bishop is nothing else but an overseer. A pastor is an overseer. But nowhere in the fivefold is it says that in order to be part of the fivefold, you must marry. So that reading of yours is filled with holes. It makes no sense. 1, 2. Read what 2 says.
First of all, reading the red part, this passage is not addressed to all believers.
No. Only to those who want to be.
But applies only to elders and deacons.
So ask yourself, are you an elder and are you a deacon and are you a bishop? So this specific verse applies to those people. So you cannot generalize this text and say you must only have one husband, one wife. If this is the way you think and interpret things, I'm afraid of you. Because it makes no sense. That is 1. Continue reading.
Secondly, notice these passages do not say only one wife. The Greek word that Greek word one is translated from the Greek word that one is translated from here is the word G3391 and it means Mia and is also translated as a or the first. In other parts of scripture, thus the emphasis would be that an elder needs to be a married man having children and that he must not have divorced his first wife.
So what he's simply saying is, if you want to be a deacon, a bishop, you must be someone who's not a divorcee. Because what happens when a divorce? It means you are not able to what? Manage. That's what it means. It means you gave up. You couldn't handle the pressure of the pressure cooker called marriage. So he decided to run and seek for green pastures. So he's saying your credit score must be clean, meaning you must not be a divorcee. You must not be a divorcee because that is a clear evidence that you are not able to manage. So read.
Likewise, elders and deacons are to be the husbands of one wife, of a wife, and have children, because if he cannot rule his own household, how can he rule the assembly of the Messiah? This passage does not limit him to only one wife. That is not its point. The purpose of these qualifications is stated in 1 Timothy 3 verse 5. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the assembly of Elohim? The point is that he must be able to rule his wife and children, and if he has multiple wives and is able to rule them, so much the better. Any man who can love and rule multiple women and make them happy, according to the word of Elohim, is certainly qualified to rule a congregation of many other believers.
That is the point of that verse. That is the very point of that verse. And I think the explanation is clear. And it also makes sense. And it also makes sense. Because and it also makes sense. Because listen, the man who wrote this, Shaul, was an elder himself. People, what are you talking about? So Shaul being one of the apostles, Peter being one of the apostles, sometimes they say, and unto the others, we the elders, we exhort. So he was an elder, but the guy was not married. The guy was not married. So you cannot take this verse like this and then it would make no sense. And that is why you see that the New Testament, my expectation of the New Testament is very low. It is very low. Because the pen of the scribe, it is very low. You read Matthew, and this is what Gabriel said, he shall be called Emmanuel. It is very low. It's inserted. Yet, because we wanted to give you guys context, we explained it. So, divorce in the New Testament, read.
Even though a man can carry more than one woman without being charged with adultery, a woman cannot marry more than one man, according to Romans and Corinthians 7.
Yes.
And that if a woman is involved with another man, she will be charged with adultery. The reason the man is not mentioned by Shaul is because, according to the law, a man could marry another woman whilst his first wife was still alive and not be guilty of adultery. In matters of divorce and remarriage, it is Shaul's pattern of writing in 1 Corinthians 7 to apply something to both the wife and husband if indeed it applies to both. Both a wife and a husband are admonished not to divorce. Both the husband and wife are commanded not to divorce in the case that they are married to an unbeliever. But only the wife is told that she cannot be joined to another as long as her husband lives.
Exactly. Paul was being very specific there. Read.
Therefore, the biblical position on remarriage is the following. If a woman is divorced unjustly by her husband, she may not remarry another because she is bound to the first as long as he lives. If a man is divorced by his wife, he may remarry another, but he must pray for his first wife's return and accept her back as his wife if she does return. So he must accept her back as his wife if she does return.
Yes. That is in the case of, because sometimes, nowadays women also send men away. Don't drop. Get out. Especially if you are the unlucky fool who decided to move in your wife's house. But never, listen, never in your life, move in your wife's house. If the house is not on your name, or at least on your name, please don't move in that house. Because I think there's a Bible verse that says that impudent is the face of a wife that has to, what does it say?
I think
that has
something
to,
would take charge
that has
of
to
them.
keep her husband. They will lose all respect. They will lose all respect. First, you will get the looks. After the looks, you will get the. After the, there will be, especially the statements.
The shots.
They will throw shots. As they say in Suriname, Odo. They will throw shots. And sometimes you have a shield, but sometimes the shield is not strong. So one shot and it hits you, and then you do two things. Either you attack or you leave. Or like us, I don't have it. You just headphones. you put headphones and then you're spacing in your house. You're in another world. You have to do that. Manage headphones. Yeah. So people, that is when it comes to divorce in the New Testament. Did you read it all?
Only the last sentence. If a man divorces his wife unjustly, he may not remarry another, as it would then be considered adultery.
Now, the hidden reason behind the dissemination of the one husband, one wife doctrine. I
Can
think
you
30
go
minutes
back,
and then we are done.
Can you visit that last sentence again that you wrote? If a man divorces his wife unjustly, he may not remarry another, as it would then be considered adultery.
So that's what we were saying. So the wife is put away. She goes and marries someone else. She's in adultery. Actually, you cause her to commit adultery because you put her away. So you put her away unjustly. And then you go around and you remarry another wife. And you will not allow her to return. So then you are also in the sin because you have put her away unjust. You see?
Clear.
That's all it means.
Clear.
So, the hidden reason behind the dissemination of the one husband, one wife doctrine. Now we are entering into the sphere of what many will call propaganda. But I don't mind. I'm just telling you what we feel, what we think, what we perceive, and what we have observed. Yeah? So, Timothy 4:1.
Now the Spirit speaks expressly
Now the Spirito is speaking expressly
that in the latter time some shall depart from the faith,
that when you will leave the shores of Africa, the place of safety, and you will venture into places where I, because of my holiness, will not go. When you go there, you will find different people with different ideologies and agendas and philosophies. And they, when they will take hold of the book of the law, hide it, corrupt it, and then give it back to you. Listen.
in the latter time some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to
Many
seducing
Bantus
spirits.
then will depart from the faith because they will lose their culture and they will give heed
To seducing spirits.
to the seducing spirits of revelation, where the false prophet and the lying man and the frogs, they will come and they will teach you lies, and many will believe them,
and doctrines of devils,
and they will believe the doctrines of demons
speaking lies and hypocrisy,
who are lying,
having their conscience seared
and they have their conscience seared.
with a hot iron.
Because they claim America, the land of the free, the land of the brave. The Catholic Church, they claim to be the people of God. But at the same time, they know that they have condemned people to be servants and slaves for eternity. That means your conscience is seared. It means you have no pity. Yet they claim to be the people of God. Read.
Forbidding to marry.
And now they, what?
Forbidding to marry.
Listen, you have to think beyond the scope of what you are used to. Forbidding to marry does not literally mean you are not allowed to marry. When you put a limitation on marriage, you are also forbidding to marry. People read this and only say, yeah, it means I'm not allowed to marry. No, you are allowed to marry, but under what conditions? If you were used and you were allowed to marry 4 and 5 and 6, and now you must, by law, are only allowed to marry 1, it means they are forbidding to marry. Read.
And commanding to abstain from meats,
And they command you to abstain from meat,
which Yah has created to be received with thanksgiving,
based upon religious purposes. Many of them, I think, on Good Friday and stuff, don't eat meat. So you see, Shaul is approaching this from a religious perspective. Otherwise, the Spirit would not speak, because the Spirit does not speak about football. Oh, Ghana will win. Ghana is playing. It grated me. And did you hear what? Did you see what you guys were doing during the World Cup? Ghana is playing, and they are playing worship songs. So in their mind, they're like, oh, God is Hanes. So because Ghana is playing their singing worship song, God is be like, yes, my son, you will win. They were playing worship song and then they lost. They lost. They lost. So people, it's a sad story. So the Spirit speaks not of football, but he speaks spiritual things. So everything that he's saying here, you will meet the prophecies of the Spirit, especially in the assembly. That's why Shaul said, do not be marveled, for Satan himself has transformed himself into the angel of light. So they will forbid you guys from marrying based upon church decrees. And they will also forbid you guys from eating meat. Continue reading.
Which Yah has created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. And then Romans 1 from 18.
Now we are jumping. I'm bringing you there. So we told you where it is coming from, how the Bible already warned. And now we go to the book of Romans, and it just happens to be called the book of Romans. You sit, you read, and you're like, hey, who can this? None of you sat down and considered, like, why is Elohim speaking about abominations and homosexuality and things with regarding to husbands and wife in the book of Romans? Because some truths are hidden in plain language. He's speaking to the people that are found in Rome, and now he's exposing the mindset of the people that live in Rome. So reading from the book of Romans, it says,
For the wrath of Yah is revealed from heaven against all wickedness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of Yah is manifest in them. For Yah had shewed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and supernatural nature, I believe, so that they are without excuse.
You are without excuse. Because when you are born, you are already prescribed a sex. You are either husband or you are either a man or a female. So the things of Elohim are clearly seen. You don't have to work to be a man or a woman. You are born that way. It means someone already came with a plan, and that's how you put it. So when you see it, you are without excuse. But now they are like, no, even though we can see it is clearly a man or a woman, we don't think so. So read.
They are without excuse, because that when they knew Yah, they glorified him not as Elohim, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened.
You are vain to tell a woman she's a man, and to tell a man she's a woman. To tell a woman, even though you are born with a vagina, even though you are born with female parts, you are born with female emotions, everything around you tells you are a female. Nevertheless, we are telling you, it's not who you are, it's about how you feel. Feelings are vain. So he's telling you in your vain thoughts.
Their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools and changed.
We are living in a society of fools. People who can say, I'm a man, but it is clear that you are a woman. People who can say, I'm a woman, it is clear you are a man. We are living in a world where now they say we are more than 70 something genders. I'm like, not even monkeys do this. How can we have more than 70 genders? Bro, in what world? But that's the world we are living in. Professors that have degrees can sit in front of you and look at you with a straight face and say, yeah, based on research we have seen there are around 72 genders, and it depends on the chromosome, the level of... I'm like, shut up. What are you saying? But this is the world we are living. So read.
And they changed
a world where, you guys know, the corona, right? Ritter and all of them guys told you, hey guys, there is a mask you can use that will not allow air to penetrate, because the corona is a virus you can transmit it. But then when people began to buy masks that had the classification ISO or something blah 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 blah, Ritter said you are not allowed to buy that mask. You should only wear a mask that is made of cloth that has holes. In other words, putting on the mask does not stop anything. Yet if you get into a bus or a tram without a mask that does not do anything, you will be pulled out. That is the type of madness and stupidity that we're living in. And all of us like sheep, we took on masks. So the lawmakers themselves, Elohim has made them fools, and we are living under them. So read.
And they changed the glory of the uncorruptible Elohim into an image made like corruptible man, and to birds and beasts and creeping things. Wherefore Yah also gave them up to uncleanness.
Now listen. Wherefore Yah also gave them up to uncleanness
through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of Yah into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. For this cause Yah gave them up unto vile affections.
very vile affections.
For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one towards another, men with men, working that which is unseemly.
Abomination, homosexuality, bestiality, all these things which are lawful. Listen, you are not allowed by law, listen, to have more than one wife. To have more than one wife. By law, it is not permitted. You will go to jail if you are caught. By law, it is not allowed to have more than one wife. Or in this case, even more than one husband. Marriage is only for one to one. By law. Yet by law, a man and a man are allowed to marry. By law, listen, sex between a human being and an animal is allowed by law. You see, this is Edom. This is Rome. So when they went to the World Cup, the Arabs were like, no. The Arabs that are married to many women were like, no. We do not want to see any flag or any rainbow, nothing. We do not adhere to homosexuality. And none of the Europeans went bananas. So they came with a slogan, boycott Qatar. Because of human rights. Because of human rights. But no one says boycott Nike because of human rights. No one says boycott SpaceX or Tesla because of the human rights of the Africans. No one says boycott Microsoft
Or Shell.
because of human rights. Because it has nothing to do with butties. But when you touch the gays, you touch the heart of Edom. So they were like, boycott Qatar. You see? So Elohim is telling you, he then gave them over to vile affections. And in that vile affection, because what you have to understand is, these are people, they are against nature. Therefore, nature is against them. So that's why you see, European countries, there is little to no crops. Natural resources don't work well with them. Nature doesn't like them. So they have to make things out of machines. Because it is anti-nature. People that are natural are loved by nature. So you will see they, us, Bantu countries and stuff, we are blessed by the rivers, blessed by the mountains, blessed by the land, blessed by the sun. Everything that has to do with nature is loved by us. And everything that has to do with machines and inventions that have no souls, we can't make it because it is anti-us. So it is like two people living in two different worlds. We produce like dogs. We produce like rabbits. They rather not produce at all. So the law on marriage, one husband, one wife, is an idea that comes from these people. Because they are the least in this world, and they will remain so. So in order to stop all the propagating and the law of Elohim, where he said multiply, when Elohim said multiply, he was speaking to men, not Nephilim. He was speaking to men. That's what Elohim said, multiply. So now, they knew that in their wisdom and craftiness, how can we best
keep the population.
Keep the population in balance, lest we die out. So let's use the church and then propagate this law of one husband, one wife. So then, who officialized this? Next slide. The man of sin.
2 Thessalonians 2
We're
from
almost
verse
done.
3.
10 minutes.
Let no man deceive you by any means,
Do not let a man deceive you,
for that day shall not come,
because that day will never come.
except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be
That
revealed,
man of sin will be revealed.
the son of perdition, who opposed it and exalted himself above all that is called Elohim, or that is worshipped, so that he, as Elohim, sits in the temple of Elohim, shewing himself that he is Elohim.
Sitting in the temple of Elohim means he's the one that now holds the keys to every church. He sits in the temple of Elohim. Just like the Bible said, Satan will change himself into an angel of light. It's the same manner of speech that Shaul is speaking. He sits in the temple of Elohim, claiming, no one in this world claims he is God, except for the Pope. He says, I am the very vicar of Christ. I am the vicar of Christ. In this world, I am the representative of God. That is what is written in their literal documents. The divine status of the Pope. That is why you will see even presidents, because we know the most powerful office in the world is that of the United States President of America. But even when he gets inaugurated, within the first few months, he must fly to Rome. Going to Rome, they will enter a secret room where they initiate. And the initiation has many forms and many ways. And then, in public, he will kiss the ring. And not only the President of the United States, the most powerful representative of the Arab world, the Ayatollahs and the Sheikhs themselves, they also go to Rome and they kiss the ring. Because many already know how Islam is a Catholic invention. The same thing. So he is the one who sits as is God, and he's the one who gives the laws. So continue reading.
For the mystery of iniquity that already work, only until that which now restrains is taken out of the way, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom Yahushua shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Hashatan, with all powers and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause Yah shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness.
So you see the same speech that Shaul used for the book of Romans, he's using it now in conjunction to the Catholic Church, the Pope. So now, next slide, please. That's why when you see the Pope is not married. The guy is not married. The sisters around him, the sisters of faith, the sisters of Vestia, these women, they are also not married. They are also not married. So you are seeing from these people, they are sodomites. They are sodomites. These people, they are sodomites. Their very nature, their being, it is anti-nature. Anti the laws of Elohim. Because why would you forbid? So if you want that office, you are not allowed to marry. It is so wicked, but that is where they are coming from. That's the agendas and the vibes they are sending. So go to the next slide. That's why, so the hidden reason, the final slide. That's why if you look at even all their designs, I think it was Jeff who had a wonderful breakdown of all the chapels. And you see the perversion in the Catholic Church. the perversion in their temples. Every temple you go to the temple in Rome, where that chapel of Michelangelo or whatever, you only see naked men with their penis in the church. You only see naked men. It was as if Michelangelo, all his dreams and visions were about naked men. So you only see naked men in the chapels, naked men with their private part out, with their chest. Where are angels naked? Where are they naked? Where in the Bible do you read angels are naked? They describe the angels with robes, with belts. They are not naked. But every vision of Michelangelo and all of the Catholic Church, every design in the church, naked men with their things out. All of them. And apart from the naked men, you also always see naked baby angels. And these are things you are seeing, but you're not believing. But it is hidden in plain sight. Because they expect your morality to work and be like, no, these guys cannot be that crazy. But they are. They are. Why do you see naked men in their chapels and naked babies? At the same time, these are the same people who, if you want to enter into that order, you are not allowed to marry. So what's 1 + 1 if not 2? And these are the ones that preach and that put on the religious schools where your Bantu pastor goes and gets his degree. 10 pastors that come from Africa go into the same seminary school. They get the same doctrine. When they leave, one is apostolic, one is presbytery, one is holiness, but they took the same teaching. And none sit down and consider, what's wrong? But that's what they do. That's what they do. So we are reading. Continue.
In the Catholic Church, polygamists may not receive the Eucharist.
So if you are in the Catholic Church, married to many wives, when they give their Eucharist, which is a blood covenant, a blood ritual, which is demonic, when they give that Eucharist, if you have more than one wife, they say, you are not allowed to take the Eucharist. Read.
And polygamists who wish to be baptized must abandon the practice first.
Otherwise, you are not worthy.
According to The Guardian.
Now look at the hypocrisy. Sodomy in the Catholic Church.
From Australian country towns to schools in Ireland and cities across the US, the Catholic Church has faced an avalanche of child sexual abuse accusations in the last few decades. In the most recent development, a damning inquiry found that some 216,000 children in France had been sexually abused by members of the clergy since the 1950s.
People, this is the Catholic Church.
That's only France.
This is the Catholic Church. This is the Catholic Church. The fathers of Christianity. It's them. The very people that are against you marrying many wives because it's immoral, according to them. But being homosexual, being a pedophile even, is normal because all of them do it. Now, if the men that hold the offices of bishops do it, yeah, what do you think the members do? What do you think the sisters do? So how can from that vessel come a pure doctrine? Which angel ministers to them to teach the people? And what does that spirit whisper? If not wickedness. So, final verse, or ena laatste. Edom-Rome connection.
So, the spirit of Elohim identifies Edom with Babylon. See Psalms 137. Remember, O Yah, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, raise it. In other words, make bare or destroy the temple, as Edom did under the Romans, even to the foundation thereof. And then the verse says, O daughter of Babylon, Here we see, without any possibility of mistake, that Edom is Babylon, and all sacred and profane history confirms it. Chaldea, or Babylon, was established by Assyria. Isaiah 23 verse 13 says, "Behold the land of the Chaldeans. This people was not till the Assyrian founded it for them." The capital of Chaldea was Babylon. The Assyrian Empire embraced the country on both sides of the Tigris. Babel, or Babylon, was founded by Nimrod. See Genesis 10. About the year 3416 BC. The Assyrians descended from Taurus, and Caucasus conquered and destroyed Jerusalem together with Syria, and these, with Phoenicia, became the Roman Empire.
Don't forget, Edom is not just Edom, it is also in combination with the Canaanites. People always forget that. Phoenicia is Canaan. Read.
And they together were called Chaldea, as it was in the time of Yahushua under Tiberius Caesar. From the east, the Chaldeans, or Romans, peopled the west. First Italy, then Rome, then France, then Germany, England, and America. Rome was founded by Romulus in 750 BC, and after Yahushua, or after, in the year 325, Christianity became the established religion under Constantine. Hence, Babylon, Rome, Edom, and Christianity are synonymous.
So that's why we say this whole construct is Babylonian. It is Roman in perspective. That's why they teach it to you, because they are unnatural. So then on the right, you see the picture, the global decline of the fertility rate. Who are the most fertile people? Or up?
Niger.
People, you can't make this up. I have no time to make this up. The niggas are the most fertile people. That's why I always say Elohim has an excellent sense of humor. You read Niger, you're like, no, it's the niggas are the most fertile people. So they are in top. Have you went to Niger before? So they are on top. The most fertile people are the Bantus. And do you know why? Because many of them have many wives. Because many of them have many wives. How do you want to populate 12 children with one wife? Do you want to kill that person? Do you want her dead? No. 2, 3, finish, seal. If you want, so they have many wives, and so they populate the world. So who's the one below?
The one below are the Nigerians.
People, you see the sense of humor of Nigeria. Continue, please.
And then the Senegalese.
People. The most because many wives.
And then the Ghanaians.
People, Ghana. Hey, respect. Continue.
And then the Pakistanis. And then comes the world average. And then the Mexicans are below average. And the Americans, or the Europeans, they are below average. And the Asians, or the South Koreans, they are way below average.
Punishments of Elohim. Japan, they will die out.
And the Chinese,
because they sleep with robots. Japanese men don't want women anymore. They prefer cyborgs. Robots. So you see, America's just above them. Because Europe, they are dying out. It is the curse of Yah. He said you will be the least. If you read the book of Obadiah, you will be the least in the world. So in order for them to counterbalance that prophecy, let's decree a law to stop these Nigerians and Nigerians from doing things. So now, because you have become a Christian, they tell you don't do things. But we have come to tell you, if you have the means, do things. Please. If you can, do it. Based upon law and principles. So people, these are the things, yeah? We are concluding. And then we're done. So read for us.
In conclusion,
First, watch the picture. What does it say? Out of,
Babylon.
yes, consciousness or collectives. So read, conclusion.
Hebrews 13 from 4.
Mm.
Marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled.
Yes.
But whoremongers and adulterers Yah will judge. We have seen that from the Old and New Testament there is no single law against polygynous
Not one.
relationship.
Not one.
As a matter of fact, in many cases, such relationship helps out many families to sort out the financial and the organizational matters which with regards to the raising of children and keeping the home. One of the greatest tools the enemy through the Europeans have used to destroy many nations from the borders of Africa is the preaching and the enforcing of a law that forbids polygyny. Many of us, especially the ladies, despise the practice of polygyny.
Of course.
And yet,
because they are Babylonians. It's my husband. Whilst we men, I don't think I've come across a man who says, it's my we don't do that. But it's my man. It's Babylonian. I'm not yours, you are not mine. All we are, I'm rented to you, you are rented to me. One day you will leave, you will die. So give each other room to breathe. Do normal. So he's telling you, especially the women, they hate that idea.
the practice
But
of
Isaiah
polygyny.
said, days will come when 7 women will go to one man and be like, please, we have our own jobs and careers, but there is no man around. Could you please give us your name? So what will you do when that prophecy comes? And especially our Bantu women, because they are lively, but they are also very jealous. So sometimes to keep the peace, if there is another around, then she knows for, hey, I'm claiming too much. That's why my opa had onze opa had vier in Benakonj had vier. But then he climbed the tree and then he fell, he died. Maar hij had vier. And no one, and no angel said, you are polygamy child. I can't speak to you. It's life. My father has one, but look at his stress. No, there's no peace. There's no peace. So now, what every Bantu man now does is, hey, summer vakantie. Once you hear that, hey people, so let's live life. Yeah, women, stop harassing your husband, and husbands, take your time with women and live life. Please get that thought out. You don't owe me. You don't owe anyone. Especially that one, it must enter the brain of. So, did you finish reading?
Nope.
Okay, finish.
Many of us, especially the ladies, despise the practice of polygyny, and yet without it, none of them would have been born.
None.
Whether we like it or not, one way or the other, all of us came through a polygynous society from Africa, Asia, the Arab world, and all other continents except the so-called Western world. This has forced many men to cheat because their churches or assemblies do not permit them to marry more than one woman. This has also ensured that many women are not getting men to marry because they are more than men.
Just go to the church. When you don't have anything to do, dress up well, put perfume, just be normal, and just go to the church. For every one brother, there are 5 sisters, and all of them, like vultures, they are looking. So they have applied the art of watch and pray. They are speaking in tongues and they are beholding. So if you are a brother and you want things, you don't have to go to just go to the church. Many sisters are around and just a few men. So now what happens is, that is why witchcraft is found in the church and no longer outside. And especially women practice witchcraft. They don't know. So now when that sister gets married, you will see. I've seen it. I've observed and heard it. One sister gets married. If there are 20 sisters in the church, at least 15 are not happy. And 10 will not go to the marriage. Because they are angry. Because why did that nigga choose her? Why not me? I remember one day I brought him cake. So that's why single men, sisters, they bring you food and you're like, oh, Ada, I eat because I'm married. If you're not married, don't eat. Because you don't know, they are giving you and you're so happy. What you don't know is these women, they keep records. They keep records. So what they'll be like, Ma, if you didn't, why did you eat all my cake? What can I say that summer? What can I say? So people, hey, and this is the thing, eh? But let's say they were taught for, hey, you can trade Rito, then they will be calm. But now all of them are fighting for your attention, and now the church is filled with evil intentions and people that are very wicked because of these things. So read and conclude.
There are laws that speak against adultery, but the word adultery has been misused by many religious leaders. The word adultery from Genesis to Revelation only comes in when a man sleeps with a married woman. When a married man sleeps with an unmarried woman, it is not adultery but fornication. If the act was performed just for pleasure, so it is only called fornication if the act was performed just for pleasure and no marriage or concubine is established. The Western world has forced their way of life on the whole world and have tried to use the scriptures to support their claims. However, this has been proven to be false.
Yes, sir. So we thank you. Up until the next time, please take your time, consider the message, and plan out your lives. So shalom.
Yes, so this is the end of today's program, and this is also the end of the topic or the theme called polygamy, or polygyny, I should say. We looked at the topic from an Old Testament perspective because there are examples in the Old Testament where you can see it really clearly, but a lot of the people who read the Bible claim not to see the principle or the concept of polygyny in the New Testament, and that is what we try to touch today. If you have any questions in relation to this topic or other topics, or you think there are topics that we have not touched that we should touch, you can always send us a message and we'll try to make it part of the program. We are busy with a few changes in regards to the show, so keep an eye on our social media pages to be updated with the next show and when the next shows will be. We hope to see you very soon on the Hour of Restoration YouTube and on Facebook. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah. What shall I render? Tell me, what can I offer to you? How can I say that I'm grateful? Oh yeah, I have a Father who will never ever fail me, no. He never sleep or slumber, he'll never fall my hand, yeah. You have been closer than a friend, and this your love will never end. So I've come to say, it's you, all you are. It's you, Baba. It's you, all you are. I'll give you my heart and affection. I'll give you my love and devotion. I'll never cease to worship you.